Do you ever question your ability to make an impact in the world? Or maybe for you, you question God's faithfulness, and is He really truly there with you? Or maybe it's one of those situations where you've started something, you're really excited about it, and then it kind of fizzled because you weren't really sure what the next step was. Well, if any of those scenarios are resonating for you, this is an episode you are not going to want to miss. I have a beautiful guest with me today, and she's going to talk about how we can impact the world with God's help. And it's a little bit longer than my usual episodes, but you are going to want to stay to the very end because I'm going to make an offer in a way that you can make an impact in the world that would reach far beyond anything you probably normally could have. So I'm just so grateful you're here, and I hope you'll join us for this engaging conversation. Welcome to Longing for More, where Christians come to strengthen their faith, revive their soul, and learn to live their lives with a sense of fulfillment and peace. Listen each week to learn how to incorporate your faith into your daily activities, stop wandering through life feeling empty and unfulfilled, and begin to live your more. Let's get started. Well, everybody, as I promised, I have a really special guest with me today. And I know I say that a lot, don't I? But oh man, it's just, I love how God just keeps bringing in people who felt that longing for more. And we get to talk to them. We get to learn about all the different ways that He created us, and then He uses us to fulfill His purposes. And this is a little bit different approach than we've had on the show before. And I am so excited to introduce you to Jessica Klassen. And she's got a really fun way to make an impact on the world. I love what you're doing, Jessica. But first, before we dive into all of that, would you just tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of what your journey looks like so far?
Yeah, of course. So I am a mom of two wonderful boys. I have a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old. And I also am the wife of a paramedic firefighter, which is wonderful, but it is a very different lifestyle than a lot of people are probably used to. And I have for the last 10 years been mom. Before that, I was a missionary in Ecuador for a while, for about 4 years. And I've always just loved encouraging people. And people have asked me in the past, what would you do if money wasn't an issue? I would make people smile, but you generally can't get paid for that. That's not something that
yet.
I know. And so about a year and a half ago, my mentor at this time of this recording, my mentor had given me a spiritual gifting test. But what I loved about this one, because I've done multiple in the past, this one actually encouraged you to use things that you're naturally good at, your talents, your gifts and abilities, not just your spiritual gifts, but also those and your past experiences. And so I put all of those together. And then I don't know if you've seen The Chosen, but at one point he is talking about how The Chosen got started. And someone had emailed him and said, it's not your job to feed the 5,000, but it's your job to bring the loaves and fish. So he asked the camera, ask God, what are your loaves and fish? And so I remember taking that test and said, okay, Lord, this is what you've gifted me with. These are basically my loaves and fish. What do you want me to do with it? And the idea of my Ripple boxes kept coming up. I didn't know the name at the time, but I was like, that's nice. I don't know how to make a box, a subscription box. I don't know how to make gift boxes. I don't know how to run a business. I don't know how to do any of that. And then about August of last year, I started waking up every morning at 3 a.m., praying for people I've never met who were going to be receiving these boxes. And this happened every night until I finally submitted and said, okay, Lord, I get it. This is something you want me doing. So if there's something God puts on my heart and I can keep ignoring it, He will continue to bring it up in different ways. And this was one of those.
Yeah. Oh, that is so beautiful. And I have used the story of the loaves and fishes many times. That's such a beautiful story. And it's such a great reminder that we can fail and we can fail and we can keep doing what we think we should be doing. And until we're in alignment with God and the timing is right and all of those things, it's not really failure. It's just learning and kind of bringing the pieces together. How long did you go with those 3 a.m. rendezvous with God before you said, okay?
I think it was about 2.5 weeks before I finally said, okay, but I didn't even know where to go from there. So first step is like, how do I even start a business? Make an LLC. Okay. Next step. And honestly, this whole journey has been, okay, Lord, what's the next right step? And like you said, I've made tons of errors, but it's continually surrendering and coming back to him because over and over and over, he keeps reminding me that I'm going to guide your steps. Okay, Lord, what's my next step? What's my next step? And then I try to do a bunch of it on my own. And he's like, but you didn't ask me your next right step. Okay, I'm sorry. So,
Yes, I love that reminder, and that's so true. And yeah, that's part of my story too. I've said so many times that he'll give me an idea, and I'll just grab it. And I'm laughingly said, and I've left him standing there holding that door of opportunity open for me, and I run way ahead, and he's like, "But wait, that
yep.
needed you to go through the door, not all the way down the road, right?"
Yes.
So I've come
Yeah.
back around a few times. So I love that. So, all right. So people that are listening that don't know you are like, what are those two talking about? Because we haven't talked about the box yet. So tell us about the box and how the ripple box and what it means and yeah, let's just start there.
Yeah. Ripple boxes is the name we actually eventually came across or decided on. And at first, the boxes were called impactful encouragements. My heart really behind the boxes was I want to be able for people to be able to send surprises in the mail to other people as an encouragement. I wanted people to help direct others back to Jesus. I wanted to make people smile. So when I was in college, we kind of had this running joke that the mailbox in college was a rejection box because nobody sent mail. And especially in today's day and age with text messaging and emails, we don't get mail anymore. In fact, I had an intern this summer and I sent her a bunch of postcards that had pre-stamped. I just like, you just need to copy this sample and then send them out. And I get a message back from her. She's like, how do I send stuff in the mail? I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
But we've gotten away from it. We've forgotten. But let me ask you a question. Anytime you get a letter from a friend or a package in the mail that you're not expecting, what is your immediate response?
Oh,
You
it's
smile.
excitement. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, because it means someone's thinking of you. With my husband being a paramedic firefighter, he sees people on their absolute worst days. And I'm not expecting with these boxes to be able to say, poof, there's no more mental health issues. But if we can remind people in our community, hey, I'm thinking of you. Hey, God put you on my heart. And we can send a box of encouragement. How much less people will my husband need to see on their worst days?
Yeah.
So there's 4 parts of every box. That's why they're called ripple boxes, is because they are actually casting ripples. The first one, we get to be encouraged and bless ourselves by encouraging other people. The second is being able to make the person receiving the box smile, feel loved and seen and valued. Third, there's actually a tool in every box, whether it's a card that already has a stamp on it that the recipient can encourage another person. So they can write a card to somebody else. There's in some of the boxes a wooden thank you token, and it just says thank you. The instructions in the box say hand this to a person who does a thankless job.
Mm.
The example I often use is someone at Walmart cleaning the toilets. Like, nobody sees them. So you hand this coin to them, and inside there's a little saying, and it says, I see what you do, and it doesn't go unnoticed. Thank you for all that you do. That in and of itself can be very powerful. Then, so that's the third ripple. The recipient can encourage another person. The fourth and final ripple is all of the items in my boxes are from small businesses. And most people are like, oh, you should get them donated. As much as I would love to do that because that would increase profit margins, that is not what I have felt God asked me to do. I'm actually, as every box, you're helping to support families. Mm-hmm. One item in every box is something that is made by women and children or families around the world who are trying to come out of really awful, challenging situations. So, for example, sex trafficking, victims of sex trafficking, refugees, widows, orphans. women or children, families coming out of extreme poverty, to also provide them. There's the saying, if you give someone a fish, you'll feed them for a day. If you teach them how to fish, you can feed them for the lifetime. So helping their businesses grow as well around the world provides for their families so that those children don't have to be in sex trafficking or as slaves or in these awful plantations where they're just awful, awful circumstances. So these boxes truly are trying to cast ripples of hope and light into our local communities and around the world.
That is so beautiful. I love that. So you started with this idea. How in the world do you take that, just like, oh, I just want to make people happy, I want to make a difference? How do you, I mean, this is new too. I mean, it hasn't been that long. So
Right.
how did you turn that into a business? Did God bring you the people that could do the different pieces parts, or did you have to learn it all, or how did that
A
come
little
up?
bit of both. I've never run a business. My dad was an entrepreneur. So I was able to go to him and say, where do I start? What do I do? And very quickly, so I started the LLC in August of last year. And very quickly, I was able to join a group called Keeping It Personal. They have a refined community, and they met every Wednesday. And she said, you have 5 minutes to tell me about your product. I'm like, this is what it is. I'm still figuring it out. And so with her, I was able to work on what is my messaging. But honestly, I did almost all of it myself with God's guidance and help. And I figured out how to make a website by myself. I figured out how to make a podcast. I went through a boot camp with a friend of mine who runs boot camps for podcasts. And I just, honestly, it's putting yourself out there. It's learning to trust God and say, okay, Lord, what's the next step? And then he's brought people along the way. You have no idea what to do on Instagram or social media. Here's someone who's going to help give you tips and tricks. You have no idea how to do business. She's going to come alongside you and show you how to actually do this. I still had to do the work, but he brought people into place in areas that I'm like, I don't even know the questions to ask. And so it was very much God kind of bringing different people together. And I've always loved, that's part of the skills and talents I had with the test that I did. I love finding hidden gems. So I love finding products to go in the box and go, oh, this is how it goes together. And then people keep asking me as well, how do you come up with the themes for each box? Because every quarter there's a new theme. And I said, I go out to breakfast, not out to breakfast, I go to coffee really. And I spend an hour. Okay, Lord, what's this next theme? What needs to go in the box? And I sit and I wait, which sounds very hard, but it's actually a lot of fun because I'll throw around a bunch of different ideas and then I keep praying about it and I sit and I wait. And God goes, that one. People need to hear that right now. Okay. And then you run with it.
I love that. I do. So, because, I talk to people who, journal to find out what God wants them to do next. And, and I talk about how we need to be in the Word, we need to be in prayer, and we need to be still. We need to just and listen to him. So that's a really beautiful example of not only doing it, but then being patient and waiting for him to show you in that stillness. Because if you didn't ever do that, you wouldn't know what to do next, would you? I mean, it would be a lot harder to hear where he's leading you next. So do you generally use like local merchants, or do you reach out? I mean, are you just looking more for the theme, or are you really trying to keep it tied to someone local?
It's more so tied to the theme, but I've gone to like street vendor fairs and gotten information from locals. Again, with me also traveling around the world, I've been to a number of different countries. I've lived in a number of different places. I have contacts in France. I have contacts in Uganda and Ecuador. And so the very first item that I knew was going to be in the box was actually it was a beautiful necklace from girls who were rescued from sex trafficking. And I knew the people who founded that company when I was in Ecuador. And two of my students when I was in Ecuador were actually rescued from sex trafficking because I was a teacher down there. And so I knew I want this in my box. And so there's sometimes they all come together and they're beautiful. They end up just incredible. But God will kind of, you need to talk to this person. So, for example, I joined a Christian women product mastermind. We all had products and we're like, let's figure out how to support each other and encourage each other. Well, as I did that, I was like, wait a minute, I want one of your things. I need that in this box. So it's been a lot of fun to see God kind of bring different people into my life and circumstances. And the guy I got to interview yesterday for my podcast, I would have never known him a year ago, but God just brought him along. I'm like, that's so cool. He's actually rescuing people in Pakistan, rescuing physical slaves who were born into it from their grandparents or their great grandparents. So it's just been amazing to see God's community is massive. And when he asks you to do something, he'll bring the people along the way.
Wow.
But I wanted to, you had asked me about a verse, my favorite verse, and I had a different verse that God has given me for this year. But as you were talking about God leading us and being quiet and still, this is a verse he gave me a few days ago as I was reading through my normal devotion. And it's so important for life in general, but also in business. And it's Psalm 24, verse 5. It says, lead me in your truth and teach me, for you are the God of my salvation. On you I wait all day. Am I willing to wait all day for God's direction? Am I trusting that he is the God of everything, including my salvation? Am I willing to trust and follow his leading and his truth and his guidance? Am I willing to wait all day?
Or longer, if need
or
be.
longer. Yes. And often my answer is no. But Lord, and I think that brings it to an interesting point as well with my business, because I am often there's two characters in the Bible that remind me most of myself. The first is Jacob, where he physically wrestled with God, because there's a lot of times I'm like, okay, Lord, I know you're putting something in my heart. I don't know what it is. You and I need to wrestle through and figure out why my heart is struggling with you right now. And then the second one is Peter, because I often will be like, okay, Lord, you asked me to do this. Like you said, I'll just run at it. Okay, that's what you asked me to do. I'm doing it. Like, whoa, wait, slow down. But he also, this entire journey with Ripple Boxes has reminded me of Peter stepping out of the water. Okay, I trust you. I'm going to do it. So he steps out on the water, and then he starts to look all around at all the waves and takes his eyes off of God, and he starts to flounder. And that is exactly how my business felt. I did everything that I thought he asked me to do, and then bills started coming. I'm like, I have no orders yet. Are you sure I did this right? Are you sure I was supposed to do this? Did I do it too fast? I feel like I was following your direction. Did I miss something?
Yes, been there.
Yes. And I even had that again recently where I'm like, wait, Lord, I thought I did it all right. I thought I was following your directions and your guidance. And this is a mess. Yeah. And every time he keeps coming back to, you've taken your eyes off me. You've forgotten that I'm in charge of your business. You've forgotten that I'm the one wanting to touch people and give them hope and light. You're trying to do this on your own strength. Look at me, rest in me, surrender. And as you surrender, trust that I am good and I will direct your path. And I will bring the people you need. And then he also has challenged me with that to look at his faithfulness. Recently, I was feeling that again. I'm like, I'm not getting anywhere. And my brother reminded me, he said, Jessica, when I asked you your very first goal for Ripple Boxes, what was it? And I said, I wanted to touch 100 people through these boxes. And he says, and how many boxes have you now sent out? I've sent out 124.
Times 4 then, right?
Well, yes. Yes.
Because each one blesses 4.
Everyone blesses at least 4, because you have at least 6 items in the larger boxes.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
he's like, so God's been faithful. Even though you feel like you're floundering, you've taken your eyes off of God and you haven't looked at his faithfulness. So these boxes have taught me so much more about my faith. And as God's teaching me about my faith, he's asking me to share that with others and share that hope that God is our hope. God is our light and he is our foundation. So,
yeah. Well, and I love that, we talked before we hit record that, we go through those periods of, you know, floundering. You step out on the water and you're all, yes, yes. And then we look at all the stuff that's going around. And I mean, I just shared that I have recently been through that too. And I'm pretty sure, because we were scheduled to do this a week or so ago. I'm sure that God knew I needed to hear your message today, not a week ago.
oh, yep.
Remind me of the faithfulness that he is showing all of us. So timing is everything, and his God timing is perfect. So I'm just so grateful that we're here talking about this today. And the other thing that I want, a couple of things that have come up in your talking, and one of them is I'm going through a Bible study about what God's nature is and what he really wants from us. And it's usually different than what we think it is.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times what we want. But one of the big reminders is that it's not about the numbers. It's
Right.
about that blessing and the encouragement that we're giving to people. And I clearly see that you're doing that and you're doing it well. So I just love that. Something else you said that I wanted to come back to because it's so timely. You're talking about some of the items in your boxes are, helping people that have been, come out of sex trafficking and things like that. And in the world today, what are we all talking about, right? The
Right.
movie, the movie.
Right.
And my favorite line in that movie, and you hit on it, was, and I had to write it down because I always think I'll remember and then I don't. So I just wrote it down so I would remember, be able to go back. And it's the guy that used to be in the cartel, and then he switched to helping stop, the sex trafficking and stuff like that. And his line was so powerful because he said, "When God tells you what to do, you cannot hesitate."
Yep.
And that was, to me, was just such a powerful statement. And it's true because so many times, God created us all for so much more than what so many of us are living. He gives us the gifts and the talents and the skills and the opportunities. And sometimes we hold back out of fear. Sometimes we hold back out of distraction. Sometimes we just don't even realize, we don't know what we don't know. And we don't realize that that's what he's asking of us. But when he brings those people and those opportunities to us, even when we don't know what it means, we need to take that next step. And you just have such a beautiful, beautiful story on that. So I'm so glad that he brought us together so that you could share your story with my listeners. I know that they are all being touched by that. And one of the things that I think is really important for us to talk about right now is, because you do a really great job. Whoever your copy person is, or whoever got you started on that, did a really good job, because I love your copy and just those ideas, planting those seeds of not just the way that you have it set together. I mean, because you have different opportunities of, you can buy one box, or you can buy this, or you can buy quarterly, or you can do this. I mean, all the different opportunities. But I love how you kind of plant the seeds of how people might use these boxes to have the ripple effect in their lives. Talk some about some of those things that people that are listening might be going, well, I don't need a box like that. Help them see how they maybe do.
Yeah. I'm going to really quickly go back to what you had mentioned about doing when God tells you to do something, to actually do it. So I did it, but I did it very quietly. And a friend of mine about 3 months ago looked at me. She said, "So God asked you to do this, right?" I said, "Yeah." "Then why are you whispering about it?"
Yeah.
And that hit really hard. And over, God is like, you need to do this boldly. You need to get out of your safe zone and do what I asked. Yes. So when you said that, I was like, yes.
All right. So you asked about the book. Yes. And I just have to tell you, because you saw the title, Equipped for More. But now that you've said that, I have to tell you what the subtitle to the book is. It's the 10 essential habits to stop your doubts and fear of judgment so you can boldly live your faith.
Oh,
right?
I love that. I need that book. I need that book.
Well, we'll make sure you get one.
Okay. So
So,
going back to how people can see it, I actually wrote everything on my website. I asked for suggestions and we kind of walked through things with another person, but I wrote everything that's on my website.
well done.
And um,
With God's help, of
someone,
course.
of course, I know nothing. That was all God. But yes, anyway, it's all God. When someone was asking me, they're like, they had asked that. I don't even know who did. I can't think of anybody. The word that God kept giving me is a journey. Take someone on a journey. And so I said, okay. At the time, I was still doing it monthly before the market research I found was people are like, that feels intimidating to have to think of 12 different people, a different person every month. So at the time, I was doing it monthly. And I said, okay, imagine you had signed up monthly and the first month, you felt God put someone on your heart over and over and over. And you're like, I don't know why this person's on my heart. I can't, they just aren't going away. I'm praying for them. I'm thinking about them. I'm letting them know I'm thinking about them, but they're still there. And so I sent a box. Well, I actually wrote that out because that happened to my mom. My mom was like, I don't know why this person keeps being on my heart. So I'm going to send her a box. She found out 3 weeks later that her friend, on the day the week that she kept having her on her heart, her friends, 3 of her family members were murdered.
Mm.
And she was like, I felt so alone. And I felt that God had left me. And then the theme for that box was "You're not alone." And she got that on her front door and she started sobbing. And she's like, I needed that reminder. And so the journey then goes to the next month that you sent that last month. The next month, you have been praying this list consistently, and this person you just keep praying for this person, and you're not sure why. So you send them a box, and you find out that her daughter had just died of cancer. Again, you didn't know it. So all of these are actual examples of stories I've gotten back. And then the third month, you decide then to send it to someone you see constantly serving in the church. It could be the pastor's wife. It could be just someone who's always there, always loving on other people. And you give them a box just to say thank you. Hey, I see you. I want to say thank you. And her response is she starts tearing up. I felt like no one noticed. And just that act is, I see you and I appreciate you. I love you. In fact, I had wanted to give my pastor's wife one for a long time. And God's like, nope, not yet. Nope, not yet. And I called her about a week and a half ago. And as soon as she picked up the phone, I was like, something's not right. It's like, are you okay? She's like, nope, I'm drowning. I was like, can I come give you a hug? She's like, nope, I don't have time for that. So I dropped off the peace box, and it had scripture reminding us of where our peace comes from. And she wrote me back. She said, I started sobbing because I forgot, and I took my eyes off of Jesus, and I was trying to do it all on my own. And I felt unnoticed. The point of these boxes is to help anyone and everyone in your community, someone who has a health thing, someone who has lost a job, someone you just want to make smile, someone who's on your prayer list, someone that God will not release from you. We have no idea what's truly going on in a lot of people's lives. And a box like this really reminds people and helps recenter them. So my newest box right now, the theme is known. You are known and loved by God, because I've talked to countless of Christian women, who are forgetting their identity in God. And the response I've gotten is when people get these boxes, they're like, I needed that reminder that God loves me, that he sees me. One of the verses that we have in this box, it's actually the top of the lid of the box, is when Hagar has Ishmael and she names God. She says, you are the God who sees me. God sees where everyone is at. And the hope of these boxes is to help people be reminded that they are seen and loved.
So beautiful. Yes. What a blessing. Yeah, I'm so excited that we get to share this message. And so I am sure that there are people listening that are like, I gotta get some of these boxes. How do they find you? How can they learn more about it? How can they sign up to send them to their friends? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah. So I will make sure you have all of the information for the show notes. There is a web PDF that I can send you guys if you sign up for my newsletter, that it's different easy ways for you to cast small ripples in your community. It's simple things like, hey, smile at people more often. Help with eye contact. So it's different tips and tricks to be able to spread small ripples. You can also find the boxes themselves at rippleboxes.com. I'm on Instagram and Facebook, and those are all great places to find me.
So do they find you by your name or by rippleboxes.com? Or
Ripple Boxes is what you'll find me on
okay.
Facebook, as well as Instagram is jessica.rippleboxes.
And we will put all of those in the show notes so people so if people we'll put a link to this PDF so people can sign up and get that, and then they'll get your email as well, I assume. Is that how that works? Wonderful.
Yes, correct. And then I also have a podcast if you guys are interested in listening to that. It's called the Connected Faith Podcast, and it explores the ripples that we cast in our communities.
I love it. I will definitely go listen to that. And then, so we had talked before about the fact that I always like to have all my guests share a verse that is speaking to them either in this season or whatever. And I know that you have one. Would you be willing? Another one? You already got to hear one. But you have another one. Would you be willing to share that with us now?
Yeah. The verse that God has given me for this year is Psalm 32:8. And it says, I will guide you along the best pathway for your life. I will advise you and watch over you with my loving eyes on you.
Yeah. And he will. It's a promise.
And he will.
It's
he
a
does.
promise. Yes, I love it. Well, he has truly blessed you, and it's clear that he, like I said earlier, he has a purpose for all of us. And can you imagine how amazing the world would be if everybody stepped into their specific purpose?
Yes.
Wouldn't it be amazing?
Yesterday was slightly like, Lord, I'm not rescuing these slaves like this guy. And he said, but you're in your zone. You're in exactly where I asked you to be. And if we all stepped into that, this world will look so much different.
Right. And one of the things that I try to remind people when I talk about living your more and stepping into our more and all of that is, I think sometimes people get the idea that means that they got to quit their job and go start a subscription box, or they got to quit their job and start a podcast and become a coach and write a book and all the things. And that's just not true. That's one of the lies of the enemy. What God's really asking for us is to find out how we can make an impact where we are right now. If he wants us to go somewhere, he'll tell us,
right.
in all the ways he
Absolutely.
told you.
And it's being that faithful servant. That's at the end what he's looking for, is that relationship and a faithful steward, faithful servant. So one of the ways I did that in my home before I even started this business, every window, the way our house is situated, every window looks to a different neighbor. Mm-hmm. And so if I was in that room cleaning or doing the dishes or with my family in the living room, I had a moment to be able to pray for every one of my neighbors. That's not a huge thing, but it's being faithful with where you're at. It's loving your children well. At one point, someone had asked, well, who are you mentoring? And I said, right now, I'm mentoring 2 children who are now also starting to mentor other children. Our families, because I think sometimes we forget as moms, we're like, I have to go do something big. And that's something that God's taught me with these ripples, with Ripple Boxes. I grew up wanting to be a missionary to change the world. I grew up wanting to be like, I have to end cancer or end poverty and end world hunger. And God's like, no. And in fact, what I learned living in other countries is they have different cultures, but they're all different. They're all people. And the biggest impact I can make is one-on-one, is being faithful with wherever God has me.
Oh, girl, you're talking my language. I love it. Truly, your story about the windows. So Are you familiar with Del Tackett and the Engagement Project, the Truth Project and the Engagement Project?
No.
Okay, so I skipped the Truth Project. I'd heard about it, but I'd never done it. And he came to my town several months ago to train up leaders to do what he calls the Engagement Project, and it's an amazing study, basically a video series and all of that. And he is walking on. We're not done with it yet, but he's walking us through this process, and he's basically saying, you know, God is calling us to love our neighbors. Doesn't matter who that neighbor is, whether they believe or not, whether they think like you think or not, whether they look like, it doesn't matter. He's calling us to love our neighbors and to pray for opportunities to get to know them, not to evangelize to them, but to just get to know them on a deep, loving way so that someday they may ask where it is that we have our hope, where that hope comes from. And I just think that that's so beautiful because, again, we think we have to go do all these things and God will bring them to us. The other thing that I love about you talking about the one-on-one is just recently he shared with me when I was on vacation in February, I was down on the beach, which I love the beach, but I bought a necklace that had just a starfish. And I realized one day that that's kind of my emblem now to remind me that I don't have to reach hundreds of people. I just have to focus on the one person that's in front of me. So that's kind of my new thing with my coaching and my membership that I'm working on, is that to encourage and support people to just focus on that one person that's in front of us, or those two people that are in front of us right now. Don't worry about what's on the phone. Don't worry about, where we might have to rush off to next. How can we love the person that's right there? And I love your example of praying for the neighbors, and that's so beautiful. I'm adding that to my suggestions. Yes, my list. So beautiful. Oh, girl, this is awesome. So before we wrap up, is there anything else that you would like to share with our listeners today that we maybe haven't talked about yet?
I think it comes back to what you were talking about with the one-on-one and the impact that we are trying to have, and it's not about numbers. With the ripple boxes, today I was at the river and it was like glass, but there was these perfect little stones. So I went to go cast stones because I did that as a child, and especially with the ripple boxes now, it's like something I've, like my emblem, like that you were talking about.
Yeah.
And at one point when you were little and you got that perfect one where it skipped multiple times, you're like, yes. But actually I started watching it. When I hit that one and then another one, they eventually merged because of those ripples. But it was just that one time. Like I hit one and then I hit another one. So total would have been 4 or 5 people that I've talked to, that I've impacted. And those 4 or 5 people impacted others. So when I was in Ecuador, I had a student who didn't speak English very well. I taught a lot of English as a second language students. And I focused on her because God just kept putting her on my heart. But as I was teaching, I had her in multiple other classes throughout the years until she graduated. And she came up to me and said, I want to thank you. It's because of you, because she was in normal classes. I helped with her English as a second part of it. And she said, because of you, I've been able to graduate. And because of you, now I'm becoming a teacher to help other students. Just that one person. That one person will have an impact that you may never see this side of heaven. But that one person, when I went to Urbana at one point, and I'll end with this story. This story impacted me so much because of the power of that one person. There was a girl coming home, and she was the one sharing on stage. She's like, I was in college, I was coming home in between classes, and I ran into a guy that I kind of knew we were an acquaintance. Hey, you should come to our Bible study. So he started coming to the Bible study, but she eventually her schedule changed, so she had to go. All she did was invite him to this Bible study. This kid actually was an international student who went home, and he started sharing it with his roommate at home. Well, that roommate actually went back to China, and that roommate started an underground smuggling of Bibles. And one of the people who got that Bible then started an underground rescuing of girls from sex trafficking, because that one girl invited the one boy to a Bible study. And he somehow they had all kind of told each other that story, and she had never heard it until she ran into the guy at the airport, one of the guys. Let me tell you this story. Let me tell you the impact you've had.
Mm.
All because she invited one person to Bible study. If God puts someone on your heart, just be faithful with that one person.
Well, you've given me chills. Now I'm going to have to go cover up. No, that's so beautiful. And honestly, we don't know. I mean, it's amazing that she got that feedback, because so many
Right.
times we can make an impact and we'll never know
Yep.
how that ripple effect took place. But we keep doing it anyway, because we don't focus on the impact that we're making. We just keep being obedient.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So,
Yep.
oh, I
And
love it.
do what God asks you to do, one
Yeah.
step at a time.
I love it. I love it. Well, I just am so blessed that you were here today and were able to. I'm blessed that you're doing what you're doing, and I know that you're touching lives. And I'm hoping that the people that are listening today will share this story so that others will be able to be blessed as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Wasn't that just incredible? I was just as encouraged the second time through as I was in the actual conversation. There's just so much wisdom and encouragement wrapped up into that conversation. So I just want to thank you for stopping. If you, like me, want to go back and pick up certain parts of that, remember that, as always, you can go to longingformore.xyz, and you can search for certain words, so you don't have to listen to the whole conversation again if there's something specific you're looking for. It's just a really great resource. And I did it so that you could kind of come back and revisit some of the conversations we've had along the way. There have been so many great ones along through the years, and I just encourage you to take advantage of that opportunity. Another opportunity that we have available for you is through August 1st. So if you're listening to this episode when it goes live, you have a few days left to be able to go in, and you can actually get a Ripple box. If you purchase one for yourself or you buy it on hand, she will donate 10% to go towards sex trafficking or a local shelter, or you can just sponsor one that she will give to someone in her local area. So either way, it's a great opportunity. You know, our world, there's so many things going on, and right now we're really focused on sex trafficking based on the movie that is just recently been released and we talked about in this. But let's not forget. Let's know that there are women out there, there are children out there that are being impacted by this. And so send a Ripple box. Do something to encourage others to keep going, regardless of what it is. So I just want to thank you so much for stopping by. All of the links and details that we talked about are going to be in the show notes. So look those up if you want more details or want to get a hold of Jessica. Again, you can find her at ripplebox.com, and you'll get a link to all the good things that are happening there. Thank you again for stopping by. Until next time, in 2 weeks, when we get back together, I ask that you go, you be blessed, and that you always, always live your more.